All right, so today we're going to really dive deep into this idea of how American Muslims can really make a difference when it comes to, supporting Palestine in the upcoming 2024 election.
Yeah. It really emphasizes a multifaceted approach, It's not just one thing. It's about political engagement, it's about grassroots activism, and it's about what they call strategic voting.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and it's not just about like showing up on election day. It's like you're saying, it's a
process.
You have this constant engagement.
The whole thing.
Throughout the whole thing. I mean, they talk about everything from like attending town halls to actually like, contacting your representatives.
Yeah.
And even like framing these interactions as like an opportunity to almost like teach people.
Yeah.
About the Palestinian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Not just to demand action, but to kind of like...
educate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that approach?
I think it's a really fascinating approach that American Muslims, they often have like firsthand knowledge and experiences.
Right.
And they can use that to really provide a counter narrative, to the information that's often circulating out there.
Makes sense.
That's often very one-sided.
So, okay, so beyond this idea of like the political engagement.
Direct engagement.
Yeah, they also talk about like grassroots activism.
Yeah.
And they get pretty specific too. Like they're talking about organizing rallies, protests, and even targeting like specific events like candidate debates or primaries.
Right.
Have you ever seen that tactic used effectively?
I think it's a really smart strategy. If they can align their actions with these events that are already high profile, they can really capture the attention of the media.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And in doing that, they force the issue onto the agenda. It becomes something that candidates have to talk about, using these rallies as a way to collect signatures for petitions, do voter registration drives, so it's really linking it back to that electoral impact.
It's like killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly.
Okay, this next one is really interesting to me. They talk about this idea of strategic voting, and it's not just about voting for a candidate that says they support Palestine.
Right.
It's like you have to do your research.
Yeah.
You got to look at their record. You got to look at like who they're getting donations from.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they're pushing for a much deeper level of analysis. What do you think?
Yeah, it's about going beyond the surface level.
Yeah.
Moving past the slogans and the kind of vague promises and really looking at the data. There are websites, databases.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. They actually list 5 very specific actions that people can take to advocate for Palestinian rights within the electoral process. So we're talking about things like hosting community events to educate voters, writing op-eds for local newspapers, even volunteering for campaigns. It's a pretty solid roadmap, don't you think?
It is. And what I think is so powerful about it is that each of these actions, they're impactful, but they're achievable for the average person.
Totally.
It's not about...
You don't have to be like a politician or something
Exactly.
to be able to do this stuff.
It empowers people to feel like they can actually make a difference, even without having a ton of resources or holding some fancy position.
Absolutely. And this leads into what I thought was the most like powerful argument in the entire piece.
Yeah.
It's this idea of the American Muslim community coming together.
Right.
They talk about how this unified action, it amplifies individual voices, and it creates this collective force that is really hard to ignore.
Yeah, they actually use this phrase, transformative potential, to describe what can happen when this community comes together. They argue that when American Muslims speak with a unified voice, it can actually shift the entire political landscape.
It's pretty inspiring stuff.
It is.
So we covered a lot. We talked about political engagement, grassroots activism, strategic voting. It feels like pasted text give people a real toolkit for taking action.
It does, and it leaves us with a lot to think about.
Yeah, what do you think about?
It doesn't explicitly mention social media, right?
Oh, interesting.
And I wonder if that could be a really powerful tool for amplifying these efforts. Think about it. You could use online platforms to coordinate these rallies.
Right.
You could disseminate information, reach a much broader audience.
Well, that's such a good point. I think you're really onto something there. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question. What really resonated with you from pasted text? What are you going to explore further? This is just the beginning. Now it's your turn to take action.